All right then. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is February 1st, 2021. This is a special meeting of the members of the State Liquor Authority being conducted in Albany and also remotely. We have joining us by telephone Chairman Bradley.
Yes, I'm here.
We have Commissioner Ford, who can be seen on the video, and Commissioner Fan, who's also joining us by telephone.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Staff and attendants, we have General Counsel Meyerhoff on video. We have Deputy Commissioner of Licensing Roberts on the telephone.
Thanks.
And myself, Secretary Downey, in the authority's Albany offices. We have 6 items on today's calendar. There are requests from Council's office for emergency orders of summary suspension. We'll start off with agenda item 264PP. It's Suffolk OP 1250522. The licensee is Spiro's Restaurant, Inc.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Michael Amorado from Associate General Counsel from the New York State Liquor Authority. And I submit the subject licensee, Spiro's Restaurant, Inc., to members of the board to consider an emergency order of suspension of their on-premises license pursuant to 401.3 of SAPA. The premises is located at 4 Patchogue Drive in Rocky Point, New York, which is located in Suffolk County. The license was issued on April 4th, 2011 to operate as a restaurant. The board members should be aware that at the time of the filing of their application, their establishment questionnaire stated that there was 75 patrons permitted inside the premises. Now, in Suffolk County, under 202.41, indoor dining is permissible since June 24th with 50% occupancy. On January 30th, 2021, at 6:20 p.m., the task force entered the premises and the licensee was present with his mask below his chin. There was also one kitchen staff member who was not wearing his mask properly. At that time, the investigators counted 86 patrons seated between the bar and the dining area, and another 18 in an outdoor tent. The photos attached appear or show the patrons were not socially distancing from each other at the bar, and the tables appeared not to be 6 feet apart. There are no prior EO violations, and there's no adverse history. As I said earlier, Phase 3 went into effect on June 24th, 2020, which permitted indoor dining on Long Island, which includes Nassau and Suffolk counties, at 50% occupancy as long as they were socially distancing, tables were 6 feet apart, employees were in their masks, and patrons wearing their masks when they were up or walking about the premises. This has been going on now for over 7 months, and the licensee has obviously chosen to ignore the restrictions and permitted the premises to operate in violation of the Executive Order 202.41. Additionally, at the time of the inspection, the licensee wasn't wearing his mask properly, nor were the kitchen workers. Clearly, this licensee has chosen to disregard the governor's executive orders and cannot be trusted in this environment, and thereby causing imminent threat to the public health and safety. Council's office respectfully requests that this license be summarily suspended. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. The members have a picture that reflects a maximum occupancy of 108 on the wall. We actually have information that the occupancy was supposed to be lower than that, but even at 108, that would mean only 54 people should have been in the premises, and there was substantially more than that. And you can see the pictures of how they were seated in a fashion that is reminiscent of pre-COVID times.
Thank you.
All right then, Commissioner Fan, any questions?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, any questions?
You're including the outside tent. Is that area licensed? Is that approved on the license to use that area?
The outside area is approved, but the 17 that were inside the tent were not part of the count.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
All right. Bradley, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on evidence presented by counsel and also pictures submitted into evidence by the investigators, clear that this licensee is violating the governor's executive orders to prevent the spread of COVID-19. This shoulder-to-shoulder, tables not 6 feet apart is just really not acceptable at this point of the pandemic. And due to imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, I'm voting to summarily suspend.
All right, Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
Based on evidence presented by counsel, I am also voting to summarily suspend.
And Chairman Bradley.
Based on council's presentation, I'm voting to summarily suspend. It's clear this licensee is a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare.
All right, the next item I have on the calendar is 264QQ, Suffolk OP 1263441, Savino's Hideaway LLC.
Good afternoon again, members of the board. Michael Amorado from the Office of Counsel. And I submit this subject licensee to members of the board to consider an emergency order of suspension of their on-premises license pursuant to 401.3 of SAPA. The premises is located at 258 North Country Road in Mount Sinai, New York, which is also in Suffolk County. The license was issued on July 25th, 2012, and was issued to operate as a restaurant. The establishment questionnaire filed with the SLA stated that the legal occupancy limit at this premises was 145 people. On January 30th, 2021, at 7:03 p.m., the task force conducted an SLA inspection. At that time, they conducted a head count, and there was 131 people in the interior and bar area of the premises. Included in this number were 6 patrons who were standing with drinks in their hands, some not wearing masks, some were not wearing masks properly, and some were not wearing them at all. There was no social distancing going on. The tables to appear, again, to be less than 6 feet apart based on the photographs provided with the investigation report. As the investigators were walking through the premises, the owner's son yelled to the kitchen staff, "Masks up." And in addition to the EO violations, there was an expired Department of Health permit, which expired back in June 30th of 2016, and there was no maximum occupancy sign posted. Now, the licensee has a prior executive order violation that has been charged on the case number 14821. And that prior case involved an inspection that was done back in September of 2020. We received a not guilty plea, and that case is still pending. In that case, it was a similar situation. There were patrons standing at the bar. There was employees not wearing masks, and a manager yelled to the staff to put their masks on as the investigators walked through the premises. Now, even before this first case has been resolved, that September 2020 matter, the task force observed employees not wearing masks then properly or wearing them at all. And the manager yelled at that time to the kitchen staff to put their masks on when he saw the task force. So licensee was observed again at this time. Even more egregiously, though, operating the premises in violation of the governor's executive order, namely 202.41 and 202.16, by operating with more than 50% occupancy and thereby creating an imminent risk to public health and safety. And therefore, counsel's office respectfully requests that this license be summarily suspended. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Mike. Any questions?
Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
And Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on evidence presented by Council Amorado, this location is violating the governor's executive orders preventing the spread of COVID-19. This location is an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, and I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
All right, Commissioner Ford, any questions?
Based on evidence presented by counsel, I am also voting to summarily suspend this license.
And Chairman Bradley, your vote, please.
Based on council's presentation, I'm voting to summarily suspend. It's clear this licensee is a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare.
All right, the next item I have is 264RR, Bronx OP 127012337. I think I have an extra number on this one. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's 1270123. License is Javier Caraballo.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lawrence Schwartz for Counsel's Office. We're respectfully requesting an emergency order of summary suspension pursuant to Section 4013 of the State Administrative Procedure Act. We're making this request as a result of executive order violations putting the health, safety, and welfare of the public at risk. The subject premises is Javier Caraballo. It's licensed as a restaurant. It's located on Willis Avenue in the Bronx. They've had an OP license since July of 2013. What led to this application is that the task force entered the premises about 1 o'clock in the morning this past Saturday, January 30th. They did that after they heard music coming from inside. There are gates over the windows and the door at this location, and they were either down or partially down. There were windows in the front of the premises. These windows were covered with curtains, cardboard, and newspaper, which made it impossible for a person on the street to see inside the premises. The front door was locked with a deadbolt. The investigator had to bang on the door for some time until finally a manager with a mask around his neck opened the door. When the investigator got inside, he saw that there were 5 patrons at the bar, one of whom was standing. Several of the patrons were not wearing masks. He also saw that there were 2 operational video gambling machines. The premises was under the control of the manager, which is not listed on the method of operation. There were 6 fire code violations. Both doors to the place were locked. No food was being served. And as a matter of fact, the stove that was used for preparing the food had been removed 7 months ago. There were also 3 bottles of liquor from an unauthorized source and no receipts for the liquor which was being served. Now, this place has no adverse history, but it seems clear that the people in charge knew that they were violating the law. The doors were locked, the gates were down, the windows were papered over, and clearly the people inside didn't want to open the door. So it's submitted that the licensee is deliberately engaged in conduct which is in violation of restrictions placed on licensed premises at this time. They're offering service of alcohol at the bar inside the restaurant in an unsafe setting. We respectfully submit that the licensee's actions are an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, and that summary suspension is required in this matter.
All right, Commissioner Fan, I noticed you've joined us by video now. Did you catch all of presentation? All right.
Yes.
All right, then. With that, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, thank you, Larry. I don't have any questions.
Commissioner Ford, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on evidence presented by counsel, it's clear that this licensee is violating the governor's executive orders surrounding prevent the spread of COVID-19 and by allowing service past curfew and keeping their patrons inside, which create another unsafe condition. There's an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, and I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
All right, Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
Based on evidence presented by counsel, aside from executive order violations, including a locked roll-down gate, locking people inside, I'm voting without question and without a doubt to summarily suspend this licensee.
All right, Chairman Bradley, your vote, please.
Based on council's presentation, it's clear that this licensee is a threat to the public health, welfare, and safety, and I'm voting to summarily suspend.
All right, then, the next item I have is agenda number 264SS. It's King's OP 1277046. Licensee is Our Wicked Lady, LLC.
Again, everyone, we're requesting a emergency order of summary suspension pursuant to 4013 of the State Administrative Procedure Act as a result of executive order violations putting the health, safety, and welfare of the public at risk. The subject premises is called Our Wicked Lady. This is a tavern on Morgan Avenue in Brooklyn. This place has had an OP license since June of 2015. Now, there were 3 separate inspections of this tavern last week, and despite warnings being given, the same violations, including EO violations, were still happening the 3rd time the inspectors went there. The first inspection was last Wednesday night, January 27th at 9:40. An NYPD lieutenant made an undisclosed inspection. He saw at least 10 patrons eating and drinking inside a fully enclosed enclosure on the roof. He came back at midnight with other members of the team, but the place was locked and they couldn't get in. The next night, Thursday, January 28th, the task force got into the premises at 10:30. The doors were still locked, but the task force members heard music and saw lights from the roof. They were able to get in when the manager was taking out the garbage. The manager wasn't very cooperative, and on this occasion, the task force managers did not go upstairs to the roof, but an inspection of the lower level revealed 7 fire and safety violations. These violations were not only explained to the manager, but the members of the task force spoke to a principal and one of the owners on the telephone and explained the violations to him. The manager was also handed a cease and desist letter, which detailed the EO violations. Now, the task force went back a 3rd time the next night on January 29th at about 9:50 in the evening. This time they did go to the roof. There were 8 people eating and drinking on the rooftop. They were not socially distancing. The tables on this rooftop weren't even 6 feet apart. They were only about 2 feet apart. There were people milling around, drinking, talking. This rooftop structure, it should be noted, is at least semi-permanent. It's made out of metal and wooden walls. It has a stand-up bar, which is not authorized. There is a large gas heater mounted on a ceiling bracket. There is fixed lighting at the structure. One of the principals was there for this 3rd inspection, and when he realized that there were law enforcement personnel on the premises, he quickly told the patrons that they all had to leave immediately. So again, in addition to the EO violations, on this last inspection, there were 7 fire code violations. There was pre-mixing of alcohol going on. There was a failure to post the required warnings. So to summarize, there was the first inspection on Wednesday. There were EO violations observed because we're in the enclosed structure. The next night, there's another inspection. The manager and principal are notified at that second inspection of the violations which were observed on the first and second nights. Then on Friday, the task force goes back a final time, and the place is not only still open, but it's still serving patrons indoors in violation of executive orders. And there hadn't even been any attempt to cure the fire code and other violations of which the licensees were notified. And I think it's also worthwhile to note that the majority of these violations could have been taken care of by the staff of the place relatively quickly. This place has no adverse history, but I think it's clear that the licensee has deliberately engaged in conduct which is clearly in violation of the restriction on licensed premises at this point in the pandemic. This structure was offering full indoor service. This is the type of conduct that the executive orders and Department of Health and SLA regulations are designed to prevent. We respectfully submit that the licensee's actions are certainly an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, requiring summary suspension. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Fan, any questions?
Larry, you said this, you just, when was this location licensed? Hello?
Yes, I hear you. I'm sorry. June of 2015.
Okay.
Commissioner Ford?
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Yeah, the majority of these violations, you said, Lawrence, could have been taken care of pretty easily with the first warning. Was the first warning on the first night they were there, or was it the second time they were there?
It was the second night, Commissioner. The first night was an undisclosed inspection, and then they went back. Okay. The person who made the initial inspection was an NYPD lieutenant, and he went outside and spoke to the investigators and everyone else. They decided to come back later and do a more thorough inspection, but they couldn't get in. So then they went back the second night, and this time they did a more thorough inspection and saw the fire code and other violations. And then they at that point, the second night, they advised not only the manager but one of the principals of the place of the violations that they had seen on both of the first two inspections.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have any further questions.
All right, then, Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No, I have no questions.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on evidence presented by Council Shorts, this location is creating imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare by indoor service, and after multiple warnings, continue to cure any of the in the public health, safety, and welfare, and voting to summarily suspend this license.
All right, Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
Based on evidence presented by this by council, which pretty much confirms the licensee has no intention to try to address the violations, I have no choice but to summarily suspend this licensee as well.
All right, Chairman Bradley, your vote, please.
Based on council's presentation, it's clear this licensee has no intention of following the ABC law or the executive orders, and therefore is a risk to the public health, safety, and welfare. I'm voting to summarily suspend.
All right, the next item I have is agenda number 264 TT Kings OP 1317326 Arella Cucina and Bar Inc.
Good afternoon, Stephen Armstrong on behalf of Council's Office in support of the summary suspension of this licensee who's doing business as Aura, located at 315 Meserole Street in Brooklyn. Council's Office makes this request after the licensee was found serving patrons inside an enclosed outdoor structure on 3 consecutive dates, despite being given multiple warnings that the structure was not in compliance with the Department of Health guidance and Executive Order 202.81. Just as background, this is an OP license with a method of operation as a restaurant. License was first issued in February of 2020. Now, as to the conduct at issue here, I mentioned there were 3 inspection dates. The first was on January 27th. On that date, at approximately 9:40 p.m., SLA investigator Stravali observed that the licensed premises was serving food and beverages to patrons inside an enclosed wood and glass structure in the rear yard of the premises. The investigator was engaged with another assignment, but counted at least 6 patrons inside the structure. Later that same night, at approximately 11:30 p.m., investigator Stravali returned to the premises and conducted an inspection. Staff showed the investigator the structure in the rear yard, which was fully enclosed. There's only a sliding glass window and 2 doors. As I think the photos taken by the investigator and included in the report show, the structure is clearly not compliant with the Department of Health guidelines. There were no patrons in the structure during the follow-up visit, but investigator Stravali explained to the staff that the structure did not meet the Department of Health criteria, that at least 2 sides need to be open anytime there are patrons inside. Now, the following day, on January 28th, beginning at 10:20 p.m., investigator Stravali and officers from the NYPD COVID Task Force conducted a follow-up visit. This time they found 6 patrons dining inside the structure after the 10 p.m. curfew. The structure was still fully enclosed. No alterations had been made to ensure the flow of air through the structure. Investigator Stravali again issued a warning about needing to have 2 sides open on the structure at all times. He also issued a warning about the 10 p.m. curfew. Now, the day after that, January 29th, beginning at 9:24 p.m., investigator Stravali conducted a second follow-up inspection. This time, he found 13 patrons dining inside the enclosed structure. There still no modifications had been made to the structure. It was still enclosed on all 4 sides. There were also several staff members observed without proper facial coverings. The person in charge stated that they could not operate with 2 sides open, and that was why they had not made any modifications. Now, the conduct issue is a clear violation of multiple executive orders. including 202.16 for staff not wearing facial coverings, 202.74 for permitting consumption on premises after 10 p.m., and 202.81 for permitting patrons to dine inside the enclosed structure on multiple days. Now, despite receiving multiple warnings about the structure not meeting the Department of Health requirements, licensee continued to operate the premises in a manner that threatens the public health, safety, and welfare. And based on this record, I ask that the members vote to summarily suspend this license pursuant to Section 4013 of the State Administrative Procedure Act. Thank you.
All right, then, Commissioner Fan, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Stefan.
Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
Stefan, you said on 127, the first night the investigators that were there, and they returned later that night, and they were shown, did you say a structure in the rear? Are we talking about the same structure for all of these, all of this?
Yes, there's a rear patio area behind the premises where they built this structure on top of. So it's one structure for all three businesses.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get clear. Thank you. No further questions.
All right, Chairman Bradley, any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
All right, with that, I'll call for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
Based on evidence presented by Council Armstrong, this licensee is continuing to violate the governor's executive orders designed to prevent the spread of COVID-19. I find it disturbing that this licensee and its employees and managers continue to violate the law after they've been told multiple times of the state's interpretation of the current rules. And due to an imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
All right, Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
Based on evidence presented by counsel, which includes warnings to this particular licensee, some guidance to this particular licensee, which it chose not to utilize or pay attention to, I'm voting to summarily suspend this licensee.
All right, Chairman Bradley, your vote, please.
Based on council's presentation, I'm voting to summarily suspend. It's clear this licensee is a risk to public health, safety, and welfare.
All right, then the next item I have is agenda number 264, UU Kings OP 1012482, Gambrinus Seafood Cafe, Inc.
Good afternoon, members of the authority. I'm Michael Nyer from Council's office. I submit to you this application for an emergency order of summary suspension for this licensee for violating the governor's executive orders as it relates to indoor and outdoor dining here in New York City. The location doing business as CAFWEM is located at 3100 Brighton Beach, 3100 Ocean Avenue, which is in the Brighton Beach section of Brooklyn. Now, SLA investigators surveyed the location this past Friday, January 29th at 6:15 p.m. They immediately noticed the outdoor structure that was one side of it was attached to the front of the building. There were 19 patrons inside eating and drinking. Now, this structure and the pictures from this investigator are, do more than I can present here. Clearly, this structure is enclosed on all sides, constructed of wood, metal, plastic all around. There were, support beams throughout the place. Some sort of flooring. It looks very much more like a permanent structure than a temporary outdoor structure. As mentioned, 19 patrons inside eating and drinking. The manager who was there that night indicated that he was under the impression that it was allowable if the windows were open, but then did also acknowledge to the investigators that the windows were not open at all because it was too cold out that night. Obviously, even with the windows open, two sides were not open, and so the structure is, for lack of a better phrase, it's indoor dining. The The licensee will be charged with executive order violations 202.3, 202.81, as well as ABC law violations regarding an unauthorized trade name usage and failure to supervise. There is no adverse history related to this licensee, which was originally licensed back in March 2018 as an OP with full liquor privileges. I submit to Council's office submits to the board that clearly this structure is in violation of the executive orders mentioned. It is in fact indoor dining, fully enclosed structure, and based on the construction of it, it will continue to act as an indoor dining structure in violation of the executive orders, which are meant to curb the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Council's office asks that the licensee here be summarily suspended. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. There's a picture that the members have that is taken from inside the dining room that looks into this location. I just don't know how any operator who knows they can't serve in the space inside with the windows open would then be under any possible reasonable impression that recreating a closed space immediately outside with windows would somehow be legal in this environment and be outside service. Not to mention the fact that when confronted by our investigators, just about every operator will routinely say that they've been told that the structure is legal. And this one said so, even knowing that the doors and windows he was going to claim made it legal were closed. Clearly not an operator who has any intention of complying with the law. And that's why we present the case to you. Thank you.
All right then, Commissioner Fan, any questions?
Mike, can I just clarify? So did they receive any warnings about this?
Yes, the investigator did tell them that they need to have 2 open sides in order for it to be permissible under the current regulations.
And what day was that?
That was the same day. There was nothing prior to this date.
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Ford, do you have any questions?
Okay.
Do they have any prior history with us, Michael?
No, Commissioner, none. The licensee was originally granted license was granted in 2018, and nothing prior.
All right. Thank you, Michael. No further questions.
All right, Chairman Bradley, any questions?
I have no further questions.
All right, with that, I ask for the vote of the members. First, Commissioner Fan.
This licensee continues to allow indoor service at its licensed premise as presented by council and therefore is violating the governor's executive orders preventing the spread of COVID-19. Due to imminent threat to public health, safety, and welfare, I'm voting to summarily suspend this license.
Commissioner Ford, your vote, please.
Yes, based on evidence presented by counsel, I'm voting to summarily suspend this license as well.
And Chairman Bradley, your vote.
Based on council's presentation, I'm voting to summarily suspend. It's clear this licensee is a risk to the public health, safety, and welfare.
All right, then, Chairman, I have no other items. Do you have anything else for this meeting?
No, thank you, everyone, for getting on, and thank you guys for staying even in the snowstorm. Appreciate it.
All right, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you.